As always, you woke up in the morning, washed your face and hands, made yourself a nice cup of coffee, and sat down at your computer. You didn't notice anything unusual about the house being empty, as your family members are usually at work. However, as the hours pass, you realize no one is posting anything or sending messages. You turn on the TV, but there's nothing being broadcast. Then, you check social media to find some news or updates, but you come up empty there too. You finally look out the window and see the street in front of your house, usually bustling with activities, completely deserted. That's when it hits you. Something is definitely wrong. You start calling and messaging your loved ones, but no one responds or gets back to you. Welcome to our video. In our last two videos, we discussed worlds where only women exist and where only men exist. This time, we'll explore what would happen if you were the only one left on Earth. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel. An hour passes, and to distract yourself, you start playing story-based games on your computer. However, since you still can't get in touch with anyone, you decide to put on your workout clothes and go for a walk. Outside, you see stray dogs and cats running around wildly, but there's no trace of any other living beings. After about an hour, you return home and check the TV and social media again, but unfortunately, there's still no news or updates. A short while later, you finally come to the conclusion that you are completely alone in the world. The first day is perhaps one of the most terrifying and saddest days for you, as all your loved ones disappeared at the same time, and you have no idea why this has happened. You then check your cupboards and supplies at home and find enough food and drinks to last for a few days. You decide it's better to stay home for now, thinking it might be safer if there are any other dangers in the world. After reminiscing about your loved ones by looking at their last posts and past memories, you sit back at your computer. To pass the time until you fall asleep, you play story-based games again. After 2 to 3 hours, you start feeling sleepy and go to bed, hoping that this is all just a dream. The next morning, you wake up, but the situation remains the same. There's no sign, post, or message from anyone. You turn on the TV, but no channels are broadcasting. Then you look outside, hoping to see at least a few people, but unfortunately, the streets are empty except for stray cats, dogs, and abandoned cars. At this point, you realize you'll be alone in the world for the rest of your life and start taking steps to adapt. First, you decide to visit the nearest electronics store, thinking that even though they're not used for their original purpose anymore, phones, chargers, and power banks could still be helpful for small tasks. You gather as many of these items as you can and leave the store. Your next stop is a market on your street. There, you pick all the packaged foods and products with the longest expiration dates and stuff them into your bag. However, your bag becomes so heavy that carrying it back home proves very difficult. Since you don't have a driver's license or any knowledge of driving, you can't use a car. But knowing the roads are completely empty, you decide to pick a car and practice driving tomorrow. After returning home from the market, you organize the items you've collected and designate a cabinet as your survival storage. You start organizing it and take note of the missing items, planning to travel to more distant areas soon to fill those gaps. Having played many survival-themed games before, you recall that survival-focused books are incredibly helpful. So, you set out with a backpack to nearby libraries and stores, searching through the bookshelves. After collecting about 20 books, you struggle to carry them back home. You were very active all day, and by the time you get home, you're completely exhausted. You take a shower and immediately fall asleep. You woke up to the third day of being alone. This morning, you took out a notebook and started writing down your daily plans. First, you had breakfast, drank some coffee, and began reading the survival books you collected from the library the previous evening. After thoroughly understanding topics like starting a fire without equipment, avoiding small animals, building shelters with simple tools, and finding food with basic tools, you decided to go outside and practice driving, since a car is now one of the most essential things for you. When you went out, You spotted a small car and tried to get inside, but it was locked, and you had no idea where the keys were. You then opened one of the survival books to look for sections on entering cars and homes in emergencies, and how to start cars without keys. After much searching, you found a page with instructions and illustrations for opening car doors and windows and hot wiring a car. You managed to open the car doors quite easily, but unfortunately, starting the car was much more challenging. After struggling for about half an hour and nearly giving up, the car finally started. You then read the car operation instructions in the book. Thankfully, the car had an automatic transmission, making things easier for you. Slowly, you drove the car out of the parking spot and started driving through the streets. You headed to the market to pick up supplies that you couldn't carry the previous day due to their weight. After loading many items into the car, you went back to the market to grab the remaining supplies. However, as you returned to the car, you saw a group of dogs surrounding it. The dogs had smelled the meat inside the car and were trying to get in to eat it. You quickly ran back into the market, thinking about how to get rid of the dogs. After wandering around the market, you gathered items that could make loud noises. Then, as you walked toward the car, the dogs noticed you. However, you didn't panic. You made noise to scare them off and slowly approached the car. Fortunately, you managed to get inside without getting hurt or attacked. About an hour later, you returned home and struggled to carry all the supplies into your house. Once inside, you resumed reading the survival books and came across a section that directly addressed your experience that day. Aggressive animals in the area. It explained how animals, realizing the absence of humans and driven by hunger, would eventually make their way into urban areas and streets in search of food. You understood the importance of carrying a weapon for protection and decided to visit a gun and hunting store the next day. Additionally, since you were becoming more confident in driving, you decided to look for a larger car with a cargo bed tomorrow. After reading for another hour, you went to sleep. You wake up with the first rays of the morning sun and decide it's time to become more athletic. Taking a knife with you, you head out for a run in the streets. After running for about an hour, you return home, take a shower, and have breakfast. While eating, you continue reading the survival books, which have now become part of your daily routine. You've finished nearly half of them and feel much more experienced compared to your first day. After about an hour, you create your daily plan, grab two large backpacks, and head out to find a new vehicle. Around 15 minutes later, you discover a nice pickup truck. You drive to the nearest gun and hunting store, where you stock up on pistols, rifles, and even a fishing rod for catching fish if necessary. You fill your other bag with ammunition. Next, you visit the market to pick up the last remaining fresh vegetables and fruits before heading back home. After organizing your supplies in the cupboards, you explore other apartments in your building to create a space for target practice. You decide to dedicate an hour each day to shooting practice. Additionally, you start using weights you found in the other apartments to work on your strength alongside your morning runs. Now that you've secured enough supplies and equipment, you spend most of your time at home. However, this prolonged isolation starts to take a toll on you, and you feel yourself slipping into depression. To combat this loneliness, you decide to adopt a puppy if you can find one on the streets. Taking a handful of dog food with you, you set out to search for a dog. While walking around, you come across a newborn puppy. You immediately feed it, bring it home, and spend some time bonding with it. After planning the next day, you head to bed and fall asleep. It's been about 23 days. 23 days have passed since the first day you were left alone, and now you've noticed that your body has become much more muscular, energetic, and faster compared to the beginning. Since you've become a hunter, the hormones your body produces have made you adopt a much more masculine physique. The dog you found on the streets and adopted during the first days has also grown, and you've slowly started training it to be a hunter as well. However, the real problems started arising after today. Despite advanced technology, The power plants and dams in your city have shut down entirely due to lack of maintenance and supervision. This morning, after finishing your workout and coming home, you wanted to take a shower, but realized not a single drop of water was flowing. At the back of one of your survival books, you found a map of your city that marked the locations of the main facilities supplying resources like water and electricity. Deviating from your usual routine, you decide to take your weapons and dog to visit these facilities and see if anything can be done to restore the water and electricity supply. After dressing up and packing your essentials, you get in your car and head toward the main power plant. Since these facilities are usually far from the city center, your journey takes about 2 hours, but you eventually arrive at your destination. At the entrance of the power plant, you notice that the guards who are usually stationed there are nowhere to be seen, which reminds you once again of how long you've been alone. Feeling a bit emotional, you push those thoughts aside and proceed further. With your magazine fully loaded and your hands constantly on the trigger, you stay prepared for any potential animal attacks inside. You gradually make your way to the section responsible for distributing electricity to your city. Entering the building, you are met with a humid atmosphere and a foul odor from the lack of cleaning over an extended period. After some searching, you find the control room that manages the electricity distribution system. You begin looking for a user manual to figure out how to restore the electricity supply. Rummaging through the drawers, you finally find a multilingual manual translated into every major language. Following the instructions, you start working on the machines. After a few minutes, the systems come back online, and the entire area lights up. However, you decide that it would be wise to return here regularly, perhaps weekly, for maintenance and supervision. Leaving the power plant, you turn your attention to the water supply and decide to head to the dams. However, you notice it's getting late, and the sky is starting to darken. Torn between going and staying, you remind yourself of the critical importance of water in an emergency and decide to proceed. The dams are about an hour's drive from the power plant, and after an hour, you finally arrive. You tell your dog to stay in the car and, after grabbing your equipment, head toward the area that controls the dam. Just as you're about to enter the control building, you hear some noises from inside. Holding your weapon carefully, you enter cautiously but with a surge of excitement and anxiety. As soon as you step inside, you suddenly find yourself face to face with a wild boar. You're startled, and the boar, equally frightened, instinctively tries to attack you in self-defense. Despite all the progress you've made in honing your shooting skills, the sudden fear and adrenaline cause you to miss every shot. Thankfully, the loud noise scares the boar and other animals, prompting them to flee the area. Once you're certain that everything is quiet and safe, you proceed and enter the control room that manages the dam's flow. Unfortunately, you can't find an instruction manual there. However, you assume that the system might operate similarly to the power plant and decide to follow the same steps you use there. After a few adjustments, the dam starts functioning again. However, as you check the control screens, you notice warning alerts and decide to inspect the area for any blockages or issues. After a brief search, you discover the decomposed remains of a few animals in sections that haven't been maintained or cleaned for a long time. You remove the carcasses and clean up the area. Now, both the dam and the power systems are operating without any issues, and there are no problems left that directly affect your daily life. Exactly 1 year has passed. By now, you are highly skilled and experienced in everything, and the dog you adopted as a companion has grown into a strong, capable partner. Not only does it protect you, but it also excels at performing tasks when necessary. The bond between you and your dog has evolved beyond that of an animal, and its owner it feels more like a sibling relationship, a deep brotherly connection. Whatever you do during the day, your dog does the same. It joins you for your morning runs, accompanies you on explorations, and is by your side When you go out for some shooting practice or recreation, your life has now settled into a stable and comfortable routine. With all the critical survival issues resolved, you've decided to focus on enjoying yourself and unwinding. To do so, you begin visiting places you've always been curious about. Starting close to your city, you make your way to the presidential palace to explore its interiors and uncover state secrets. Although you're astonished by the things you see, the realization that none of it matters anymore makes the experience even stranger. The fact that everything in the world now belongs to you fills you with a unique sense of excitement and power. You venture into previously restricted areas, discovering fascinating things and learning information that would have been impossible to access in ordinary life. You drive luxury cars at full speed, living out days that might just be the best of your life. Eventually, you begin to yearn for travel to other countries. Being in the Americas, you stock up on supplies and begin exploring different nations across the continent, learning about new places and discovering incredible sights. Your next grand goal is to cross over to other continents by ship or plane. Although you know this will be difficult and unlikely, you take your first steps by learning how to operate small boats. A year later, you set a date for a voyage, choosing a time when the seas and oceans are at their calmest. The day finally arrives. You embark on your journey across the water, enduring a long and challenging voyage. After days of travel, your feet finally touch European soil. Now, you have the freedom to explore the entire world and discover places that only a select few have ever seen. Your daily routine shifts from the early days of survival to one of constant exploration and discovery, with each day bringing a new adventure and something extraordinary to uncover. Months and years go by, and you've done everything there is to do on Earth. You've tasted all the luxuries, driven the finest vehicles, and explored every place worth visiting. But recently, you've started feeling the loneliness you hadn't fully noticed before. This realization leads you back to where it all began, your first home. Upon returning, you find that some of the supplies have spoiled, and the house has taken significant damage from moisture and poor ventilation. You try to keep yourself busy with a new hobby, but sadly, it only lasts for about 10 days before you revert to your original daily routine. No matter how hard you try to maintain your mental strength, it becomes increasingly difficult without anyone to communicate with apart from your dog. But then, one day, perhaps the most transformative day for your life and humanity as a whole, something unexpected happens. After completing your usual daily routine, you return home, put on some of the music you downloaded long ago, and try to sleep. As you stand up to glance out the window, you think you see someone running away from a pack of dogs and dashing into your apartment building at full speed. You spend about an hour watching from the window, but there's no further movement. Dismissing it as a trick of your mind caused by your isolation, you lie back down. Meanwhile, your dog, who had been sleeping beside you, suddenly jumps up and starts barking at the door. Assuming it's just responding to the dogs outside, you try to calm it down with some gentle pets and lull it back to sleep. You take off your headphones and prepare to sleep again. Just as you're about to drift off, you hear a sound from outside that jolts you awake. A few seconds later, your doorbell rings. Startled, you get up and cautiously approach the door, fear creeping into your chest. With trembling hands, you carefully open the door. And this is where our story pauses. The real conclusion will be revealed in part 2 of this video. But here's some exciting news. The ending of this story will come from your ideas in the comments. Share how you think this story should end, and the comment with the most likes will shape the conclusion of our tale. We're eagerly awaiting your suggestions. Don't forget to support our channel by subscribing and liking the video to help it reach more people. We love you all. Stay safe and take care.